Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I realize, as you can see, that I am competing with Find, Fix, Finish Productions. I don't intend to do that, so hopefully this stream will be relatively short. Just remember, if you're conflicted, if you think you need to choose between mine or theirs, I suggest you watch theirs while it's live because they are monetized. I am not. So you can always watch this stream later whenever you want to, and there will be no commercial interruption, or at least there should be no commercial interruption. So this I just have to continue to dunk apparently on BZ Watchdog. And I'm not, if you've followed my channel for a long time, you'll remember that there was a time where I would dunk on auditors a lot. And it's really not my bag. Like, it takes, for those of you who have never done it, it takes some balls to go out there and risk getting arrested to do what these guys do. And I think most of them are true believers. There's a lot of true believers out there who really believe in what they're doing, and they're willing to risk, their liberty for it. And that says something. There's no guarantees in the law. If anybody tells you that something is guaranteed in the law, well, they're lying to you. Anyway, on my latest video, BZ Watchdog says, Merbeast, everything you're telling me to do, I did that in my entire video. If you decide to ever watch it or show the whole video, you are wrong. I am right. Just admit it, and let's you and I be done with this topic or video already. There's nothing wrong with being wrong, except I admit when I am wrong. I'm gonna press X to doubt that you admit when you're wrong. Here's the issue. First of all, you didn't do everything that I suggested, and I'll prove that to you in a minute. But second, what you did do, there's nothing wrong in what you did. I mean, there's nothing wrong in what you did. But anyway, I watched the video. Video goes, the gal behind the counter is getting upset with them. The police are on the way. He steps outside. There's a jump cut. You see him heading towards the door. There's a jump cut. And next thing you know, he's outside talking to the cops, right? So I am going to assume that for fear of the arrest, he went outside to wait for the cops. Well, he talks to the cops for a long time. They patronize him, as cops do. They placate him. They don't want to arrest anybody over some dumbass nonsense like filming what he was doing. I mean, what he was doing really, like, these cops have better things to do than do reports over what he was doing, right? So they placate him. They go inside. One of them goes inside and they talk to him, and they come back out and they're like, "Look, here's the deal. You can in the area where there's just the post office boxes and there's no real employees or anything like that. You can film in there all you want, no restrictions. You're good. But when you go into the area where they're selling stuff, well, then you can't do anything like zoom in on it. You have to be circumspect where you film, etc." And he agrees to comply with these regulations. Now, is that what I said to do? No, that's not what I said to do. What I said to do explicitly involved him getting arrested. And I'll tell you why, but let me just play this for you for a minute and you could hear it.
Eline's stupid ass argument is tell it to him, and then when they arrest you, Eline, swoop in like an eagle, just walk up to that judge and say, "You're wrong."
Well, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you see, it does involve. Good to see you. News Now, Fort Worth. Take care. Have a good evening. It involves you getting arrested, because the only way you will ever know whether or not you're right or I'm right, whether Eline's right or I'm right, is if you get arrested. Because the only way to tell is to go in front of a judge and have the judge make a decision. And even then, it might not be complete. You might have to go up to a court of appeals. You never know. But eventually, you'll get an answer. And that answer is most likely going to be that I'm correct. And just to salt the wounds a little bit, this is Campbell versus Commonwealth of Virginia. This one doesn't involve a post office, but Virginia will only cede concurrent jurisdiction to the United States. So that's the only way Virginia will cede land is for it to be concurrent jurisdiction, i.e., both the at most the U.S. would be able to prosecute crimes committed in that enclave, etc. But Virginia would also, right? So that is the most Virginia will cede. So in this particular case, a guy was caught driving on base on roads inside of a base, Cheatham Annex, and the guy had a suspended license, and so he was saying, "Oh, it's a federal enclave, exclusive jurisdiction." And the Commonwealth does not grant exclusive jurisdiction. It only grants concurrent jurisdiction. So that's the most. So Virginia will always have jurisdiction wherever you are. The U.S. government may have jurisdiction or they may not. The next one, this is People versus Coburn. This is out of New York. This is where Long Island Audit dances and prances around, apparently. And in this particular case, a gentleman was convicted of having a dangerous weapon without a license in a post office. He says that the defendant makes the point that his possession of a weapon was not an offense within the jurisdiction of the state because, so he says, the Rochester Post Office had thereto been ceded by the state government to the government of the United States. And they said no. The state still had sovereignty over it. The mere purchase or acquisition by the United States of land within a state for a federal purpose does not itself oust state sovereignty over the land. And that's quoting a United States Supreme Court case, which basically says the same thing. In the leading case just cited, that's Fort Leavenworth. It says the consent of the states to the purchase of lands within them for the special purpose named is, however essential under the Constitution, to the transfer to the general government with the title of political jurisdiction and domination or dominion. Where lands are acquired without such consent, the possession of the United States, unless political jurisdiction be ceded to them in some other way, is simply that of an ordinary proprietor. That's proprietary jurisdiction. And then there's this case. This is a Fifth Circuit case. In this case, again, it is improper conduct on post office property. Now, this case is a bit of a twist because I have always said that got another lie or live. I'm not sure which. Maybe we'll call him A, we'll call him B. So in this case, the gentleman was saying, in this case, it was the federal government who was enforcing CFR regulations, CFR. So this is kind of backwards. So it's not the state enforcing state law. This is the federal government enforcing federal law. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. It points out though that the federal government has to take over exclusive jurisdiction or concurrent jurisdiction. It has to ask for it, depending on the state. Depending on how the state works, they have to either send a notice to the governor or somehow otherwise get it. Remember, they could always cede jurisdiction back to the state. I mean, it's a complicated process, but they go through. In this case, they talk about Adams versus the United States. But the fun twist in this one is even though this particular post office was not exclusive jurisdiction, or was not a jurisdiction where the federal government had either concurrent or exclusive jurisdiction, because of an appropriations bill, which is a bit different than a standard law or regulations. But in this appropriations bill, it allowed for the guards, the special guards, to have the powers of special policemen, but it also shall not be restricted to certain federal properties otherwise required in the proviso under said section, yada, yada. So what the court held here was that because of this language in the appropriation, the the guard, the police at this particular post office was allowed to enforce this particular section of the regulations. Now, this is a weird and silly way to do it. I just pointed it out because I think it's funny. You can read the case yourself. I think it's a very interesting, creative way that the Fifth Circuit gave the post office the authority to do what it did. It was a bit of a stretch, a bit of a reach. What most other cases have done when faced with something like this is they've basically held that even if the federal government only has proprietary jurisdiction, it can still, under the property clause of the Constitution, it can still make some regulations and things like that necessary for the functioning of that property, necessary to preserve that property for the purpose to which it was intended. And so most likely in a post office, the federal government would be able to enforce those postal regulations, the CFRs, even if there is no concurrent or exclusive jurisdiction. Just so you were, I read another case today. I had a little bit of time during lunch. I read another case today where a person was an inmate, killed another inmate in a federal prison. I believe it was in California. And he was charged under two different murder statutes. One murder statute required you to commit murder on a federal enclave, in a place where the federal government has jurisdiction, and another statute, 18 USC, it was like 1111 and 1118. The other one said that if you kill someone in a federal prison, it's also a crime, right? So he was charged under two statutes for one murder, and he's saying it was double jeopardy. And the Ninth Circuit in that case said, well, no, because this particular federal penitentiary isn't a federal enclave, even though it's a fucking federal penitentiary. The federal government never accepted or asked for jurisdiction over it, exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction. So it's pretty crazy. And California also, when I was digging around a little bit, California. So when California came into the Union, the federal government reserved some land. It didn't let all the land in. So the federal government had exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction over a lot of land, and the federal government ceded a lot of that control back to California. So it's anyway. All I'm saying is that my position is still the federal government almost certainly can enforce any regulations in a post office, but also equally well, but very probably, especially depending on where you are. Like if you're in the Commonwealth of Virginia, almost certainly, but very probably the state can also enforce state law in that post office. Now, I know E-Line is trying to make it sound like I'm saying that the state can enforce federal law, but no, I've never said that. I've always said the state can enforce state law, and unless somehow a state police officer is like part of a federal task force or something special happens, a state police officer can't enforce federal law, can't arrest someone for a violation of federal law. So that's it. So this case is pretty fun. I went through and I spent some money today on this bad mamma jamma. We watched the video. This is Wigington, and Wigington has been he got arrested one time. In a post office, and this dude has filed not one, not two, not three, but 4 separate attempts to remove his case from the state court in Illinois to the federal court. 4 times he's tried by filing a complaint. Okay, so 4 times. Now, in addition to that, he has he has filed an appeal because he lost, obviously. There you go. Here's a notice of appeal. The appeal came back rejected. It was just, I mean, it was just denied. Hold on a second. There must be a couple of appeals. Hold on a second. Here's the appeal. So this is the first appeal. So he appealed the loss, and the court reviewed the final order of the district court. The district court said, no, sorry, they get to enforce their laws. You don't have any real say in the matter. There's no exclusive jurisdiction. Sorry. So the court has carefully reviewed the final order of the district court, the record on appeal, and the appellant's motion. Based on this review, the court has determined that any issues are insubstantial. So these citations just say basically that they don't have to give oral argument or even allow for the opposition to prepare and file an opposition. It's just sorry, dude, you fucking, on its face, your appeal sucks balls. So this dude files another appeal, but it's for a petition for writ of mandamus, and again he loses, and he is warned that further frivolous litigation, it's so bad it's frivolous, may result in sanctions, and that was entered in February of 2023. The interesting one, though, I think was it this one? One of these, I think it may be this one. Yeah, so this particular one has the docket, the register of actions for his state case. So the complaint was filed on 5/19 of 2021. He's been fighting this for just about ever. There was a motion hearing. The state answered the motion to dismiss, and the defendant replied to it. So that's one. There's another motion hearing, and state's response, and he replied to there's a motion to quash a subpoena. Anywho, long story short, because a lot of stuff went on. I mean, there's just all sorts of motions to strike, motions to quash, motions to dismiss. But anyway, jury trial was set for January 18th of 2023. Oh, you can't see any of that. Shiza. So all of this right here is the register of actions for the state case. I mean, they've been duking it out real hard, and apparently it hasn't gotten Mr. Wigington anywhere, because trial is set for January 18th of 2023. Now, I don't know. I can't find anywhere where it says whether he won or lost the case. It would be interesting if anybody knows whether or not he won the case, and or can direct me to where I can get a copy of any final judgment or order or sentencing or anything like that. But that's really it. I mean, I don't know how Eline and BZ can say with a straight face that the state cannot, under any circumstance, enforce state law in a post office, because, like I said, we've seen not only was it enforced in Wigington, but it was enforced in Coburn, and there was the North Carolina case that was on BZ's website, or that BZ posted in the North Carolina Defenders Manual. So like, show me one case. Like, this is all Eline would have to do. I mean, he doesn't have to get BZ arrested, although it would be interesting. Jasper heard that he lost, but it would take a bit to find the outcome. I would assume that he lost. I mean, he certainly doesn't have any jurisdictional grounds for argument, or at least he didn't succeed on any of them. But BZ actually doesn't have to get arrested in order to prove me wrong, and Eline doesn't have to win a 1983 lawsuit to prove me wrong. Eline could probably prove me wrong just by finding one case after 1940, after the change in law in 1940, one case that says all post offices are exclusive federal jurisdiction and only federal law enforcement can enforce federal laws on post office property, period. You can't do that, though. He can't do that. If he could do that, he, instead of making shitty PowerPoints, he'd be showing you cases. You like I show you cases, I show you statutes. He shows you PowerPoints that he fucking made himself. And, but anyway, unless, as much fun as it is dunking on the mentally impaired, i.e. BZ Watchdog, as much fun as that is, it's really not much fun. And it would be much more interesting to, for me anyway, to go back to dunking on Eline. So, unless BZ, no offense to you, BZ. And when I call you retarded, it's just because you're retarded. It's not because I have any animus towards you or anything like that. But no offense, BZ. Like this is it. This is like my last hurrah. Unless you show me a case, I'm done. I'm done playing with you. Your argument is basically I got away with it, and so therefore I've proven you wrong. That's like saying I sped in front of a cop and I didn't get a ticket, so speeding isn't a crime, right? It's not really an argument. You're not really proving anything. This is a question of law. It's not a question of fact. It's a question that only a court can answer, and it's a question that I need to have. If you want me to say I'm wrong, I'll be happy to say I'm wrong. But you got to show me a court case. You got to show me a court case that says specifically all postal property is exclusive jurisdiction and only federal law can be enforced on post office property, and then I'll cede to it. So anyway, well, I'm glad. I can be a little brusque. I can be a little offensive. It's part of my charm, I'm told. But I'm glad that you're a big. I'm glad that you're a big enough man to be able to take the ribbing, and there was no pun intended until about halfway through. Yeah, absolutely. You find the case. We'll discuss it. I'll bring you up here. I will treat you with absolutely as much respect while you're up here as I treated Go Behind the Lines or Old George. And I don't make any money off this, so yeah, I like it. I like it that you can take it, man. Like that increases my opinion of you. And you shouldn't block Lord Radar. Well, Eline is fair game for me. He's always been fair game for me. And you know what, BZ, since you're here, like I just want you just take a minute. Just take a minute and think about it. I know thinking isn't really your forte, but take a minute and think about it. Think of what I've shown you. Think about the cases that I've put out. Think about how the very document that you pulled up not only had an example of a case where the state could enforce state laws in the post office. The document that you pulled, the document that you Googled had that. Think about that, and think about what Eline's response to that was. Did Eline actually explain it to you in a way that you could understand? Did he lay it out for you? Did he give you an answer that explained away all the other cases that I've shown? Yeah, I mean, it is either me or Eline will be wrong. But pay attention to Eline. Pay attention. And this is said with sincerity. He is going to pivot his argument. He's going to say that we were actually arguing something completely different. But my position is now and always has been, and I want to be very clear about it, that the post office and federal law enforcement can almost certainly enforce federal law in a post office, but very likely, and it's a huge it depends, but very likely the state can also enforce the state law at any given post office. Okay? Perfect. I'm glad you understand, sir. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful evening.